This week in our devotions, I'm walking us through the text that I preached on this past Sunday, but this gives me the opportunity to add some insights or perspective that can't fit in a sermon on a Sunday morning. And so as we're going through 1 Kings 18, I'd encourage you to read verses 25 to 29. And this is the part that kind of focuses on the prophets of Baal and what they do. And the verse of the day is the sentence that summarizes that little section. And it says, as the midday passed, they raved on until the time of the offering of the oblation. But there was no voice, no answer, and no response. And that phrase just really stands out to me. What are they trying to do? They're trying to call on a God that we as Christians would say doesn't exist, isn't even there. It's what we would call more an idol or a false god. And part of what strikes me is the behavior of the prophets of Baal. They exert themselves. They cry out at the top of their voices. They march around. They do all of this. And there's no voice, no answer, no response. And, for people who in their life end up worshiping something other than God, following someone other than Jesus, or following someone other than the Holy One, so often, ultimately, where do you end up? Well, you end up here, where there's no voice, no answer, and no response. And what's sad to me is that people can give an incredible amount of energy and devotion and passion to people or things or causes that ultimately are worthless or empty or meaningless. And tragically, we see that all the time. None of us wants to end up in the place of the prophets of Baal to the point where they're even cutting themselves in a ritualistic practice, thinking that by wounding themselves, that the one they worship will show up or respond. And of course, no one does. As Christians, we worship a God who is wounded for our sake, for our transgressions, as Isaiah said. And Jesus goes to the cross and is wounded and pierced and bleeds and dies so that we might be forgiven and freed, become beloved children of God, and that we might have abundant, eternal, joyful life. What a contrast between Baal and Baal's followers and what they get for all their sacrifice, and the difference for us as followers of God and Jesus, and what we receive thanks to the sacrifice of Christ.